basically what I'm doing today is I got this nice motor, this beautiful boat anchor that I built, you know, and it's going into an engine bay that Alright everyone, welcome back to part 2 of me losing my sanity. Let me just say that this has gone a lot farther than I anticipated initially. Originally it was just going to be, you know, hey, let me clean it up, stuff it, let me shoot it with real paint. And obviously it has turned into much more than that. I started shaving the engine bay from all the extra brackets that I don't need, and now I actually have somebody coming over tonight to weld in the holes because I do not have a welder. Now, in relation to things going way farther than I expected, this has gotten really out of hand because the more I look at it, the more I think about it. Anyways, I wasn't going to remove my brake booster because I didn't want to drain out all the fluid out of my brake lines and have to re-bleed my brakes. With that said, master cylinder's coming out, brake booster's coming off. That way I can get access to the firewall and respray everything on the firewall and make it all nice and pretty and new. And yeah, I really don't know why I do this to myself. Oh, and one more thing. I've also decided that I will more than likely be tucking my fuse box. I've always been against hiding my fuse box for the sheer fact that most people put it underneath this headlight in this area right here. And the reason I've been against it is because, I mean, it's in the elements in the engine bay, but down here it's really in the elements and it's much more difficult to get to. God forbid I run into any issues or anything, like it's not going to be easy to access. But if I'm going to go through all this work to make the engine bay nice, I want the engine bay to be presentable anyways. So that's what we're going to be doing. I guess we gotta get started somewhere, so let's just get to this. Alright, so pardon the extra noise. I want to show you guys how to tuck this. I actually, honestly, have already done this once on this car and decided I didn't like it because I didn't want to risk any kind of water getting into this. But with the new setup that's going into the car and being that it's not really my primary driving car anymore, I probably won't drive it in the rain much, if at all. But for today, I'm going to be showing you how to pull this thing all apart because we got to fit it through this tiny little hole down here. Now, I have to shove all of this through there. Oh, crap. Alright you guys, this is gonna do it. Everything's pretty much where it needs to be. So the only problem I've seen is that sometimes these wires are not long enough, but I'm not even gonna be using these connectors. Neither of these connectors have been used for quite some time. And if you can't tell, there's one bolt up here that's pretty much holding the whole thing in. It's not gonna go anywhere. I mean, it would take a lot. Long story short, what you just saw is how you would tuck the fuse box if your car was NA or if you had a front mount intercooler. And this is really the only spot in this area that I could relocate my fuse box to and still fit my CZP Titan intercoolers. These are the same size intercoolers that as like the Ash Spec Massive, the Z1BA intercoolers. They're all pretty much the same size. So if you're running any of those intercooler setups that I just mentioned, this is how you should relocate your fuse box. You can see it's more shifted back and downwards. There's a little bolt hole right there that it mounts to. I did have it up here earlier. So if you shift it down here, it'll be enough for the massive intercooler to sit right here. It'll just clear this. Piping can run through here, and the piping can run from back here. It'll clear the tire and all that as well, so you don't have to worry about any kind of rubbing or anything going on with that. I will say make sure you put a cover on this. Don't run your fuse box like this. You will get dirt, debris, water, all sorts of stuff, and it will short out. Okay, so for this area right here, all these holes are gonna get welded in, but I wanna straighten it out as best as possible before we get some welds on it. So it's been a very long week. Long story short, I had somebody come by during the week and weld in a bunch of the holes for me. I wasn't too happy with it. He wasn't a professional welder. We both knew that. I was okay with it. I just wanted the holes filled, you know, whatever. And he came by, filled them in, and then I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? I do everything else myself. If this guy's gonna do a okay-ish job, I can do an okay-ish job. So what I did in natural form is I bought a welder. It is quite literally the cheapest flux core welder you can get. These are about $100, and like I said, it's flux core, so there's no gas. With that said, I started practicing, doing my things, and we got some welded holes welded in. They're definitely not pretty, I'll tell you that much. But I gotta finish up some of the welding today and then grind them down and see how they look, make sure there aren't any more holes in them, because that was my problem. Obviously, the metal in certain spots was so thin that it was blowing through. And since it was blowing through, you actually had to kind of build it up from the bottom up. And with that, there's a lot of tacking. So the tacking left a lot of holes in the metal as it was welded. So this isn't easy for anybody who isn't a professional welder, in my opinion. Unless you have like a TIG welder and are completely okay with cutting out the entire fender well and starting from scratch. But for me, just starting out, this is what we got. But I did learn a neat little trick. Now, this neat little trick I learned involves this guy. This is a copper plumbing plug for a 3/4 inch copper pipe. Now, what you do with this is you basically, when you're welding, you hold this on the back side of the hole. And as you weld, it doesn't actually weld to the copper, but it holds the weld up in place and keeps it from falling through. And because they're just holes, I didn't need a big copper plate or anything like that. Realistically, if you're doing anything larger than this, I think you should just grab a piece of metal and weld in new metal, because 3/4 inch is pretty big. So, but anyways, we're gonna get to it. I gotta call my welder and have him come over now, and yeah. How's that saying go again? If the welder can't make it pretty, the grinder will. Yeah. So now I just have to sand it down with like a 120 or 180 grit sandpaper, give the Bondo something to mold to and to hold on to. Just like paint, if it's too smooth, it won't stick. So we gotta get it a little bit rougher than what you would do before laying paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand it down, get it all ready for Bondo, wipe it down, and then lay the first couple layers of Bondo on it and see how that comes out. Okay, so now that my welding guy is done, I gotta go hire a body guy. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. I'm the bodywork guy too, as well as the welder. Oh yeah, as far as the engine builder. Let's just start laying some body filler and act like we know what we're doing, right? Okay. This probably isn't the smartest idea either, but hey, you know what? It works. Just took a nice little 30-minute intermission while all this body filler was setting up. I went ahead and got all this. This should be the last coat for body filler. I may need to do one more after this, but I got all this set up. I got all these holes filled in here. I did a few little spots against the back firewall there, but I'm not doing too much back there. Once this cures and everything sands up, I'm gonna go ahead and apply the glazing putty, which should create a nice smooth final finish. I'm hoping to get all the body work done today. That way tomorrow I can come in and start spraying the primer. So let's get back to it. I got a couple more layers of body filler yet to lay on it, and hopefully that should do it for today. Okay, so we're on day 4 now. I think today might be the final day for body work on this thing. Thank God, because it is grueling. Like it's exhausting, you guys. So just a few quick tips. I am now on my final run of laying in the body filler on this car. And instead of looking as I go, I went ahead and took Sharpie marker and just marked a few spots that need to be taken care of so that I know exactly where to go for next time. Also, for the most part, I've been using my electric DA polisher sander from Porter Cable. But if you can, my neighbor up the street does body work and he gave me this to borrow and I freaking love this thing. It's an air tool snap-on. If you can afford to get a decent air DA sander, do that, because if you're gonna be spending a lot of time on this, this is a lifesaver. As far as keeping the air pockets out of the body filler, because this is very important. You'll find yourself doing the steps less and less if you can keep the air pockets out of the body filler before you lay it on the car. So I'll show you that in just a moment here. First of all, as far as body filler goes, make sure you use enough hardener, because it sucks when you have to wait longer than you're supposed to. Now, when you're mixing the hardener with the Bondo, do it like this. Whatever you do, don't stir it. That creates air pockets and you'll be fighting it the entire time. You're sanding it and you don't realize it. But if you can, do it like this. Spread it out nice and thin so it stays cool, because when it's together, it's a giant clump and it wants to heat up. So if you spread it nice and thin and keep smushing it, it keeps the air pockets out. All right, you guys, if you've been following along so far, thank you very much. I appreciate every single one of you that have been watching these videos and have been following along my journey with my 300ZX here. For the most part, I'd say this is it. I'm quite happy with how everything is turning out. We've got the body filler all sanded down. Everything's prepped and cleaned off and ready to go for paint. Tomorrow, for real this time, tomorrow, I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna start laying the paint. Really been wanting to do this for years now. It's been kind of like a low-key goal of mine, and it's just one of these things where I wasn't really wanting to do it or planning on doing it this time, but you know, I'm waiting for parts. The car is just sitting here. I'm not really getting much done on it. I've got a couple other projects actually that came in for it, which I'm sure you guys will want to watch those as well. We'll be installing a remote electronic power steering pump on this, and I'll be installing it in the back of the car and running the lines to the front. So stay tuned. That's going to free up a whole bunch of space in the front. If you're wondering why I'm deleting my bolt holes and mounting point for my power steering reservoir, that's why. So let's wrap this one up. Stay tuned for part 3. We're going to be laying the paint down, getting the clear coat finish on this. But anyways, that's going to do it for today, you guys. Stay tuned for part 3. We'll see you later.